It's the Slam Dunk.
So this latest One News political poll shows how close the two blocks are, and it shows how polarising New Zealand politics is right now. People largely sit firmly in their camps, and the level of vitriol fired at their so-called political enemies has never been so angry, never been so acute, and voters are well aware that the opposing parties are now very different and offer very different prescriptions for New Zealand in the years ahead. The good news for national voters is they've turned around last month's poll where Labour would have taken office, and it's now 64 seats to the National Centre-Right bloc and 58 to Labour. But it only takes an ever so slight swing to change the game, and no one can count their chickens right now. And this is National's worry. Despite holding the platform and the power of government and the levers of government, and after a successful trip to India for Luxon, the right bloc is not that much further ahead of Labour, the Greens and Te Pāti Māori, 64 to 58. It's close. And with the economic recovery now at risk due to all these tariffs, all of a sudden Luxon's claims that National is turning the economy around might no longer be credible. Put it this way, a 3-seat swing would make it all neck and neck. So despite having their worst weeks on record, both the Greens and Te Pāti Māori see their votes largely holding up. The Greens are steady on 10, and I don't know how they've come away unscathed. And I suggest you won't see the hit to them until the next poll, and Te Pāti Māori's on 3, proving there are at least 3% of voters who remain deluded, thinking this party is actually going to do something for them. But despite having their worst 10 days on record, both parties see their vote largely hold up, which I find remarkable and optimistic at best, but it shows that people have become tribal, they're in their corners and they're firmly staying there ahead of next year's election. National's problem is Luxon's personal numbers. It makes for pretty average reading. For someone who is close to halfway through the first term, and with signs that the economy is slowly getting better, or was, you'd expect him to be doing much better, but he simply failed to connect with ordinary Kiwis. Sure, he's up in this poll. And what happens to his numbers if he can't manage to get through this whole Trump tariff nonsense? Would voters see the other side as better? I doubt it. But stranger things have happened. Look at Chloe Swarbrick's defence of the indefensible. And how come the left is still so close to the right bloc? I put it down to Luxon's inability to set the polls on fire. I mean, how can they be so close after such an abysmal showing? The poll asked 1,000 eligible voters whether they approved or disapproved of the way Luxon was handling the top job. The proportion who approved was 40%, while 47% disapproved. 13% didn't even know. The poll also asked if people approved or disapproved of the way Chris Hipkins was handling the job as leader of the Labour Party. For Hipkins, 49% approved, 33% disapproved, 18% didn't know, or wouldn't say. Can Luxon do better in the polls and win people over? I'm not sure he can. Maybe if the left keep putting their foot in it, in their own mouth, he can inch up a bit, but he needs to convince new voters, not ones already voting on the right. And for the left, as long as Luxon is there, they'll feel like they've got a bit of a chance. Replace him with anyone more competent and Labour's toast. But I think they want him there and like him there. The irony in the polls, and every other poll going, is how poorly Luxon is perceived by the voting public. He hasn't warmed to people. People feel he's out of touch with the real world issues, and it's clear that he loves the overseas stuff ahead of the domestic drag. But voters largely ignore what happens overseas, so they don't really care. Now the challenge gets bigger for Luxon as the economy might take another dip post this whole Trump business with the tariffs. And without economic good news, he can only rely on one thing. He'll need to exploit the mess on the left and scare people with the thought of them returning to power. Now, Winston has plenty of mongrel, so does Seymour, but Luxon's going to have to find some, I reckon. Find some mongrel and drive it home. Drive home the disasters, the instability of and the volatile nature of the left-wing parties. What would they look like in government? Luxon needs to learn to fight this and maybe be dirty about it. Because he has so much material to work with regarding the left, he should start soon because he can't count on the economy. He needs some rat cunning, I reckon, some street mongrel. He needs to speak the people's language. He needs to drive a wedge and a knife through the left and tell New Zealanders what they did when they were in office and what they want to do to them now. Luxon's National's top dog, but he's also potentially their obvious weak point. It's a strange thing with the man that got you there, maybe the man that is the reason why you won't get there next time. Luxon needs to harden his resolve and rip into this next 18 months because the thought of the other guys running the show so soon after getting booted out would amount to a mass exodus to Australia, I reckon. I mean, who would stay here?
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.